In the annals of history, few military confrontations resonate as powerfully as the epic clashes between the mighty Mongol Empire and the resilient kingdom of Đại Việt, what is now known as Vietnam. During the late 13th century, the Mongol invasions of Vietnam reached a scale and intensity that tested not only the military prowess of both sides, but also the very spirit and ingenuity of the Vietnamese people. Imagine, if you will, the daunting spectacle. A force of up to 500,000 Mongol warriors, battle-hardened and feared across continents, arrayed against a determined Vietnamese defense, numbering around 200,000 strong. Numbers alone, however, would not decide the fate of this conflict. The true outcome would be shaped by tactics, terrain, leadership, and the indomitable will of a people fighting for their homeland. At the heart of Vietnam's defense stood Tran Hung Dao, a general whose name would echo through centuries as a symbol of national pride and martial genius. The Mongols, led by some of the era's most experienced commanders, had swept across Asia, toppling kingdoms and empires that stood in their path. Their cavalry thundered across open plains, their archers unleashed storms of arrows, and their reputation for relentless conquest preceded them wherever they marched. Yet when they set their sights on Đại Việt, they faced an adversary unlike any they had encountered before. The Mongol invasions unfolded in several waves between 1258 and 1288, but the most momentous episodes came during the second and third invasions. In 1285, the Mongols launched a massive campaign, their armies swelling to perhaps 500,000 troops at their height, as some chronicles suggest. They aimed to crush Vietnamese resistance in a single, overwhelming blow. The Vietnamese, however, refused to meet the invaders on open ground, where Mongol cavalry reigned supreme. Instead, they turned to the dense forests, winding rivers, and treacherous mountain passes of their homeland, a landscape the Mongols found alien and unforgiving. Tran Hung Dao's strategy was rooted in asymmetric warfare. He knew that direct confrontation would mean annihilation. Instead, he orchestrated a campaign of ambushes and hit-and-run attacks, harassing Mongol supply lines, striking at isolated detachments, and vanishing into the wilderness before the Mongol commanders could muster a response. Vietnamese troops leveraged their intimate knowledge of the terrain, using jungle paths and hidden waterways to move unseen and strike without warning. Every skirmish, every ambush, chipped away at the Mongol juggernaut, eroding their morale and sowing confusion. Despite their superior numbers, the Mongols soon found themselves beset by a host of challenges. The tropical climate sapped their strength, unfamiliar diseases took a deadly toll, and the Vietnamese resistance refused to be broken. The countryside became a vast, hostile labyrinth where the invaders were never truly safe. Supplies dwindled, and the Mongol army, so accustomed to swift victories, began to falter. In the end, the Vietnamese forced them into a costly retreat, dealing heavy casualties and capturing important commanders. The second invasion ended not in triumph for the Mongols, but in frustration and defeat. But the Mongols, relentless and proud, were not deterred for long. In 1288, they returned with another massive force, determined to succeed where they had previously failed. This time, they brought a formidable fleet, intending to control the rivers and coasts and to resupply their armies from the sea. The Vietnamese, however, had learned from previous encounters. Tran Hung Dao prepared a trap that would become legendary in the annals of military history. The stage was set at the Bac Dong River, a winding waterway that held the key to the Mongol advance. The Vietnamese forces, numbering about 50,000 but supported by a vast network of local fighters and civilians, meticulously prepared the river for battle. They drove sharp wooden stakes into the riverbed, concealed beneath the water's surface, and waited for the perfect moment when the tides would turn in their favor. The Mongol fleet, confident and eager for a decisive engagement, sailed into the trap. As the tide receded, their ships became snagged on the submerged stakes, immobilized and vulnerable. At that moment, Vietnamese forces launched a ferocious assault, setting fire to the trapped vessels and raining arrows upon the desperate invaders. The river became a graveyard for the Mongol fleet, and their hopes of conquest were dashed in a single devastating blow. The Battle of Bac Dang was not merely a tactical victory, it was a turning point that ended the Mongol ambitions in Vietnam. The defeat was so complete, the losses so catastrophic, that the Mongols never returned in force. Tran Hung Dao's cunning, the courage of the Vietnamese warriors, and the strategic use of their homeland's geography had triumphed over one of the most formidable military machines the world had ever seen. These epic clashes were more than just battles. They were a testament to the power of resilience, unity, and strategic brilliance. The Vietnamese transformed what seemed like insurmountable odds into an opportunity, harnessing every advantage their environment offered. They demonstrated that even the largest and most fearsome armies could be humbled by a determined people fighting on their own soil. The legacy of these wars endures in Vietnam to this day. The tactics of Tran Hung Dao are studied in military academies, his leadership celebrated in song and story, and his memory honored as a symbol of national pride. The submerged stakes of Bac Dang stand as silent witnesses to the ingenuity and resolve that shaped the outcome of the conflict. In the grand sweep of history, the Mongol invasions of Vietnam are a vivid reminder that wars are not won by numbers alone. They are decided by leadership, by knowledge, by adaptability, and above all, by the spirit of those who refuse to yield. Against overwhelming odds, the Vietnamese people stood their ground and changed the course of history. Their story is not just a tale of war, but a lasting inspiration for all who face challenges that seem impossible to overcome.